Unit 5 lesson on the rhombus. So the definition of a rhombus is a parallelogram with adjacent sides congruent, meaning 4 congruent sides. Adjacent just means next to it. So BC is next to AB, and those are the same. BC is adjacent to or next to CD, so those are the same. So adjacent just means next to. The important thing is that it is a parallelogram, meaning it is going to have all the properties that a parallelogram has as well. So we know that it has 2 pairs, opposite sides congruent and parallel. In this case, all the sides are congruent. It has opposite angles congruent. And diagonals bisect each other. Again, those are all properties of the parallelogram, and since the rhombus is a parallelogram, then we know it has those properties as well. I'm going to mark the diagonal piece that comes from the parallelogram property on there as well. So angle properties, see parallelogram properties. Opposite angles are congruent. Nothing new there. Side properties, 4 congruent sides. So we know that AB is congruent to BC, is congruent to CD, is congruent to AD. Diagonals, this one has 2 important diagonal properties. Diagonals are perpendicular, and diagonals bisect the opposite angles. Okay, so let's mark that on our picture. Okay, so diagonals form 90-degree angles because they're perpendicular. We know that angle A and angle C are congruent because they are opposite, and AC is going to cut those angles in half. Bisect means to cut in half. So we know that information as well. And BD is going to cut angle B and angle D into 2 congruent parts. And we know that angle B and angle D are congruent because that's a property of the parallelogram, that opposite angles are congruent. So notice that the rhombus is made up of 4 congruent right triangles.